Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to the closing session of the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference 2025. It's my pleasure to give the floor to the Human Rights Ambassador of Finland, Katja Perman, who will be delivering the closing remarks on behalf of the Finnish OSCE chairpersonship. Katja, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator, and good morning, everyone. Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear civil society participants. During the last 2 weeks, we have had the privilege to discuss different human dimension topics and hear from a wide variety of civil society representatives, national human rights institutions, international organizations, academia, and other experts. This conference has highlighted that civil society actors and human rights defenders across the OSCE region face an ever-shrinking space in which they can carry out their work in holding participating states accountable, including human dimension commitments. It has been underlined that security must include the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and those defending them need to be protected and supported. During its chairpersonship, Finland keeps support for Ukraine at the heart of the OSCE's work. This conference has shed light on the tragic impacts of Russia's full-scale invasion and war of aggression against Ukraine. As our Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Elina Valtonen, stated at the opening session, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is not only a blatant violation of international law, it's an assault on the very principles that underpin the Helsinki Final Acts. And yet, OSCE's collectively agreed principles and commitments continue to be vitally important. We must ensure that Russia is held accountable. This includes violations of international humanitarian law and international human rights law documented in Moscow mechanism reports, most recently related to the treatment of Ukrainian prisoners of war by Russia. We continue to call on Russia to immediately end its war of aggression, facilitate the return of deported children, and release all arbitrarily detained civilians, including 3 OSCE officials, Vadim Golda, Maxim Petrov, and Dmitro Shabanov. Dear colleagues, dear participants, the agenda of this conference has reflected the wide scope of OSCE's human dimension commitments and Finland's chairpersonship priorities, such as respecting the OSCE principles, promoting gender equality and inclusivity, strengthening the rights and engagement of civil society, inclusion of youth and persons with disabilities, support for human rights defenders, as well as media freedom and democratic elections as integral parts of resilient societies. In the discussion during these 2 weeks, the role of civil society in protecting human rights, documenting violations, and promoting accountability have been highlighted. We have heard through several interventions how human rights defenders face intimidation and harassment, but choose to continue their important work, often with high personal risk. We have also heard a call for adequate support mechanisms in place for those who may be forced to operate in exile. We have witnessed diverse voices across the OSCE region, including youth, persons with disabilities, sexual and gender minorities, indigenous peoples, Roma and Sinti, national minorities and representatives of different religious communities calling for tolerance, non-discrimination and respect towards each other. Here I would like to quote one of our speakers earlier this week. It is the sense of inclusiveness that builds resilient societies, and it is this sense that we all need for peaceful times ahead. Dear participants, OSCE continues its valuable work even under very difficult circumstances. We commend and support the work of the OSCE structures, the field offices, and the 3 autonomous institutions. The record number of almost 2,000 registered participants and almost 120 different side events have again demonstrated how important it is to come together to address the OSCE human dimension commitments, building on the legacy of the Helsinki Final Act. The interactions between participating states and civil society representatives during these 2 weeks and the conference as a platform for those interactions are an important part of the OSCE's continued relevance. In the margins of the Helsinki Plus 50 conference earlier this year, we organized a discussion with civil society actors to generate inputs for envisioning the future of the organization. We have been happy to observe that these discussions have continued here in Warsaw as well. I would now like to take an opportunity to warmly thank Odir, Director Telalian and her excellent team, and everyone who has supported organizing this conference. I would also like to extend our gratitude to interpreters and the support staff. Let me also thank our host country, Poland, for its generous hospitality as before. Most importantly, I wish to thank all participants, introducers, moderators, and side event organizers. You have truly made this conference the success it has been. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And with this, I will now give the floor to ODIHR's Director, Maria Telalian. Dear Director, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues. As we bring the 2025 Warsaw Human Dimension Conference to a close, let me share with you a few reflections. Over the course of these 2 weeks, we have engaged in deep, at times difficult, but always essential discussions on the human rights challenges facing our region. The strength and uniqueness of this platform lies precisely in its openness, in our shared commitment to dialogue, and in the courage of those participating. Let me first express my sincere gratitude to the Finnish OSCE chairpersonship and to you, dear Katja, personally, for your steadfast commitment to ensuring this space for dialogue in the absence of consensus on the mandated Human Dimension implementation meeting. You made this conference possible, and with it, the opportunity to listen to each other, to learn, and to act together. I thank you. A warm thank as well to the government of Poland for hosting us again in Warsaw, and to the more than 1,800 registered participants, a record turnout, including over 800 civil society representatives, some of whom had to travel from faraway places to engage in meaningful and constructive exchanges. Your voices remain the beating heart of this conference, and we are grateful for your continued partnership. This year also carried historical weight, taking place in the year we commemorate 50 years since the Helsinki Final Act. It is a moment to reflect on the enduring relevance of the OSCE comprehensive concept of security, grounded in the dignity and human rights and freedoms of the individual. The human dimension was conceived as the foundation for lasting peace, and it must remain at the core of our common security. We cannot overlook the grave human security consequences of the ongoing war against Ukraine. The suffering, the death of civilians, the displacement of millions, and the documented violations of international human rights law, international humanitarian law, remain a profound challenge to our joint commitments. ODIHR continues to monitor and document these violations and to support efforts aimed at justice and accountability in line with its mandate. Over these 2 weeks, more than 100 side events, approximately 600 statements, and a wide range of thematic discussions reaffirmed the critical importance of the human dimension in addressing the full spectrum of challenges, ranging from democratic backsliding and shrinking civic space to threats to the rule of law, democratic elections, and gender equality. The discussions also revealed some key cross-cutting trends. Across the region, we continue to see restrictions on freedom of expression, freedom of association, and peaceful assembly, as well as targeted attacks against human rights defenders. Such actions undermine trust in our institutions and weaken democratic resilience. In this context, the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies is increasingly shaping the human rights landscape, both as tools of empowerment and as instruments of surveillance and control, with significant implications for civil society actors. All regulation of the online space, including the governance of digital technologies, must be firmly grounded in international human rights standards to ensure the protection of fundamental freedoms. Yet, the conference also showcased countless examples of determination and good practice of how civil society, journalists, and citizens are working tirelessly to uphold our common principles. ODIHR will continue to stand with them. We are also deeply concerned by the rising levels of xenophobic, racist, and hate incidents across the OEC region, including anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim hate crimes and intolerance and discrimination against other vulnerable groups. In such times, our shared work to foster mutual understanding, tolerance, and respect becomes not only urgent, but essential to cohesion, social cohesion, and security. The debates in Warsaw also reflect the broader global and regional context, marked by polarization, selective application of norms, and a growing strain on multilateralism. Yet the discussions here reaffirmed that multilateral dialogue and cooperation, safeguarding also the civil society space, remain essential for addressing today's challenges and upholding our human dimension commitments. This is the real essence of our comprehensive security concept. What remains clear is this: there is no sustainable security without human rights. There is no peace without justice, and there is no future without the inclusive, human rights-based dialogue. ODIHR remains fully committed to assisting participating states in meeting their OEC commitments and ensuring that the outcomes of this conference translate into tangible impact and policy change. This means reinforcing support for OEC's human dimension institutions, safeguarding space for the civil society participation, and ensuring systematic follow-up to the recommendations that emerge from this conference. Dear friends, this conference has shown us once again that dialogue is possible, that partnership is powerful, and that human dimension of the OSCE must not and cannot be allowed to weaken, erode, or be left forgotten. Let us leave Warsaw with renewed determination and a shared sense of responsibility. The road ahead is not easy, but it is one we must walk together. I thank you.
Thank you, dear Director, for your words and encouragement. And thank you also for Odir for all your help and support in organizing and planning this important event. Next, I will proceed to opening the floor for the national statements. I would like to remind delegations that you can sign up to deliver a national statement at the table behind me if you haven't yet done so. Any potential rights of replies or points of order can be announced at the back table during the session. All conference participants may submit written documents online the conference platform where they will be available for all registered participants. With this, we will now turn to statements from the OSCE delegations. At the moment, I have 16 speakers on my list. First, I will give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sweden, Human Rights Ambassador. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Sweden aligns itself with the EU statement and adds the following in national capacity. First of all, we would like to thank the Finnish chairpersonship and Odir for the excellent organization of this year's conference. We have gathered at an historic moment in time, marking 50 years since the signing of the Helsinki Final Act. This conference serves as an important platform to follow up on the Helsinki principles and participating states' commitments in the fields of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. As we have agreed, these issues are legitimate concerns to all and do not belong exclusively to the internal affairs of the state concerned. While we would have preferred to meet at a regular human dimension implementation meeting, discussions over the past 2 weeks have again demonstrated the broad, extensive, and profound value of the OSCE's human dimension. A clear expression of this is the impressive level of participation and large number of side events throughout the entire conference. We deeply value the opportunity to meet with civil society representatives and human rights defenders from across the OSCE area. We acknowledge that many of you participate at a great personal risk. We have listened carefully to the concerns expressed by civil society, including in relation to Sweden. Furthermore, the messages and testimonies from civil society representatives and human rights defenders serve as important input for Sweden's ongoing chairpersonship of the Human Dimension Committee of the OSCE. Finally, let me reiterate Sweden's strong support for the autonomous institutions and their important work to support participating states in implementing OSCE commitments and international obligations. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is European Union, followed by France.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Albania, Andorra, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Liechtenstein, Montenegro, Republic of Moldova, and Ukraine have aligned themselves with this statement. The European Union thanks the Finnish chairpersonship and ODIHR for the excellent organization of the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference. We thank Poland for its traditional hospitality, as well as moderators, speakers, civil society representatives, interpreters, and all who have contributed to the conference's success. Many participants took great personal risks to take part in the meeting, including those who traveled through war-torn Ukraine and those who have found refuge in exile. While we underline the unique character of the regular human dimension implementation meeting, we appreciate this opportunity for interaction with civil society representatives and other participating states to assess the implementation of our joint commitments in the field of human rights and democracy. Discussions throughout the entire conference, with an impressive level of participation and amount of high-quality side events, are a testament to the value of the human dimension of the OSCE, and that this conference is an essential platform in times of shrinking space for civil society. We have listened to all the concerns and issues raised related to the EU and its member states, and we will continue to work on addressing challenges within the EU, and we recognize the critical role of civil society in promoting full respect for human rights and democracy. In this context, let us underline the crucial work of the autonomous institutions, ODIHR, RFOM, and HCNM, in supporting participating states in implementing their OSCE commitments. We fully support their mandates and autonomy. While the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act this year highlighted its continued validity, we deplore that all of its core principles have been and continue to be systematically violated. As we heard during the conference, our fundamental principles and OSCE commitments continue to be violated on a daily basis. Many speakers and participants have deplored the increasing pressure faced by human rights defenders, including women human rights defenders through restrictive legislation, such as laws limiting freedom of association, peaceful assembly and expression, as well as intimidation, harassment and violence against civil society actors, journalists and other media actors, online and offline, excessive use of force by law enforcement, including instances of torture and ill treatment, discrimination and intolerance, transnational repression, as well as an overall trend of democratic decline and shrinking civic space. Over the past 2 weeks, we have heard shocking accounts of violations of international humanitarian and human rights law, some accounting to war crimes in the context of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. Let us stress again that there will be no impunity, and all those responsible will be held to account. We will also continue to demand the immediate and unconditional release and safe return of all forcibly transferred and deported Ukrainian children, of all prisoners of war and civilians arbitrarily detained, including the 3 OSCE staff members, Vadim Golda, Maxim Petrov, and Dmytro Shabanov. Several speakers also addressed the human rights situation in Belarus. We reiterate our calls for the immediate and unconditional release of all remaining political prisoners in Belarus, for their effective rehabilitation, and for an end to further repression against all segments of Belarusian society. Likewise, we heard the concerns regarding the worsening political and human rights situation in Georgia. The EU reiterates its readiness to support the Georgian people's European aspirations and the country's path towards accession should the Georgian authorities reverse their present course of action. We also heard numerous concerns raised regarding the human rights situation in the 5 Central Asian countries, in South Caucasus and elsewhere. The EU stands ready to further support domestic reforms, including relating to human rights and fundamental freedoms. We reiterate that human rights and fundamental freedoms are crucial to advancing the OSCE's concept of comprehensive security. The EU will continue and stand with human rights defenders and speak out against democratic backsliding and the shrinking civic space in the OSCE region. Each and every human rights violation matters and needs to be addressed. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of France, followed by Finland. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Mrs. Director, Excellencies, distinguished participants. On behalf of France, I would like to thank the OSCE Chairmanship in Office, the Finnish Presidency, and the Office for Democratic Institutions for convening this inspiring conference. As our world has been facing many transformations for several years, they seem to be accelerating, whether in terms of ecological transition, digital transformation, and the multiplication of conflicts in every region of the world. In this ever-evolving context, we sometimes hear voices to relegate human rights, international law, democracy, and the rule of law to the background. Some believe that these would be a hindrance, others that they would be dated, obsolete, or useless notions. In the preamble to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it is recalled that disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the event of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear. We must not forget the normative frameworks created to protect and promote the right of every human being to live freely and with dignity were created by history's teachings that atrocity is more accessible than peace. Throughout the world, the lack of respect for human rights leads to barbarism. Wherever they occur, France continues to denounce these violations, to call for respect for international law, to support multilateralism and especially OSCE, international solidarity, and the fight against impunity. France continues its tradition of supporting and welcoming human rights defenders through the Marianne Initiative launched in 2021. During the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Paris, the President of the Republic pledged to create a House of Human Rights to support civil society organizations, human rights defenders, and raise awareness of their cause. Thank you to the OSCE for being a precious space for debate with civil society. In 2026, France will host the 9th World Congress Against the Death Penalty to support the international momentum for its abolition. In a few days, we will host the Ministerial Conference of Feminist Foreign Policies to reaffirm loud and clear that the rights of women and girls must be preserved everywhere and at all the time. Thank you very much.
I thank you. Next on my list is a distinguished representative of Finland, followed by the Netherlands ambassador. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. It's me again. This statement is on behalf of a group of European human rights ambassadors from Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Norway, Spain, and Sweden. We European human rights ambassadors would like to wholeheartedly thank ODIHR and the organizers for making this conference possible. It provides a much-needed space for representatives of the OSCE participating states and civil society to meet, discuss, and assess states' implementation of international obligations and OSCE commitments related to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. In times of democratic backsliding, shrinking space for civil society, and funding scarcity, this platform is more important than ever. The record number of registered participants and the many high-quality side events is a testament to this and to the continued relevance of this conference. We have deeply appreciated the opportunity to meet with civil society and human rights defenders from across our region over the two past weeks. We have listened carefully to your concerns, needs, and recommendations. We have heard testimonies about the human rights situation in Ukraine following Russia's war of aggression, about the repression in Russia and in Belarus, about the continuing extensive crackdown on dissent in Georgia, and about shrinking civic space, reprisals, and threats to human rights defenders, lawyers, and journalists, and other media actors in many other places in the OSCE area. We would like to sincerely thank civil society representatives and human rights defenders who took the time to participate in this meeting. We acknowledge the risk that many of you face for merely speaking out. Please rest assured that your messages serve as important input in our work ahead. Thank you very much.
I thank you. And next on my list, I have the distinguished representative of the Netherlands, followed by United Kingdom. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The Netherlands fully aligns itself with the statement by the European Union and the statement delivered by Finland on behalf of a group of European human rights ambassadors. Please allow me, Chair, to also express in my national capacity our deep appreciation for the Finnish chairpersonship, our Polish hosts, and ODIHR for their work in organizing this conference and facilitating the many discussions between civil society representatives and delegations from participating states. Over the past 2 weeks, members of civil society from across the region have shared with us their observations, concerns, and recommendations based on the important efforts they do, often in difficult and sometimes outright dangerous circumstances. We hear your voice. We want to thank you for this and for your courage. Chair, dear colleagues, our discussions once more demonstrated the importance of having a mandated human dimension implementation meeting, as there is a clear need to hold each other accountable for violations of human rights and our OSCE commitments. Human rights defenders, journalists, and civil society should be free from domestic and transnational repression. Accountability for perpetrators of these and other violations is of crucial importance. As host country to a number of international judicial institutions, the Netherlands will continue joint efforts to seek accountability across the OSCE region and beyond. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of the United Kingdom, followed by Estonia. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Telarlian, to you and your ODIHR team. As we conclude this year's meeting, I want to particularly express our thanks to the Finnish chairpersonship for ensuring that this conference could take place. Of course, it should have been held as the mandated OSCE Human Dimension implementation meeting. The UK strongly condemns Russia's continued obstruction of that mandate, an attempt to undermine the OSCE's essential focus on human rights and democracy. Despite these challenges, the conference has remained a key moment in the OSCE calendar. Through plenary sessions and side events, we've addressed critical human rights developments and held ourselves accountable as states. We've heard powerful testimony about the impact of Russia's war against Ukraine and about the systematic dismantling of rights and freedoms inside Russia too. The UK calls on Moscow to end its illegal war, withdraw its troops from Ukraine, and uphold OSCE principles both domestically and internationally. We've also discussed Russia's attempts to interfere in democratic elections across our region. The UK will continue to work with partners to counter this malign foreign interference, including information manipulation, to protect democratic integrity. Beyond Russia, we've discussed broader regional challenges. The deterioration of human rights in Georgia has been a key concern. The UK urges the release of unjustly detained opposition figures, the restoration of judicial independence, and the repeal of laws targeting civil society. Belarus remains another area of deep concern. The UK supports Belarusian civil society and the democratic opposition in their peaceful struggle for fundamental rights. Yesterday, I had the privilege of moderating the plenary session on human rights defenders. The UK remains committed to supporting these courageous individuals who protect freedoms and strengthen democratic resilience across our region. And I want to close by paying tribute to civil society across the OSCE region. A colleague visiting from London remarked that engaging with civil society here was a sobering reminder of how vital their work is. And he was absolutely right. Their expertise and bravery defend the rule of law, media freedom, and democracy across our region every single day. In this anniversary year, their efforts are a powerful demonstration of the spirit of Helsinki. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. The next speaker on my list is Estonia, followed by Germany. Madam, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Madam Moderator, Estonia fully aligns itself with the statement by the European Union and by the group of European human rights ambassadors. In addition, I would like to make some closing remarks in my national capacity. We thank the Finnish CIO and ODIHR for the excellent organization of this year's conference. It is an invaluable forum for fostering dialogue, sharing best practices, and strengthening our collective commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms across the OSCE region. We are grateful to be at the same table with so many courageous members of the civil society who have dedicated themselves to protecting the fundamental rights of their communities. At a time of mounting global challenges and growing pressure to sideline human rights, Estonia remains steadfast in its commitment to the principles of multilateralism, democracy, the rule of law, and international cooperation. As a newly elected member of the Human Rights Council for the 2026 to 2028 term, we seek to make a constructive and principled contribution to the Council's vital work. Our priorities include the promotion and protection of the rights of the child, the advancement of digital rights, and the safeguarding of media freedom as cornerstones of open and democratic societies, all of which reflect key components of the OSCE human rights agenda. We believe that legitimacy stems from action. Estonia's commitment to human rights is reflected in our unwavering support for those defending freedom and democracy across the region. Estonia continues its steadfast support for Ukraine in its fight for sovereignty against an imperial aggressor. We stand in solidarity with the people of Georgia in their pursuit of democracy and the rule of law. We also provide support to Belarusian human rights defenders and provide expertise to help counter Russia's disinformation campaigns. As a former chair of the Media Freedom Coalition and the current chair of the Freedom Online Coalition, Estonia continues to champion media freedom and the protection of human rights online. We are deepening our engagement with the civil society in Central Asia and invite CSOs in the region to contact our embassy in Astana to explore meaningful cooperation. In an increasingly interconnected world, Estonia brings a principled voice, digital expertise, and an unwavering commitment to keeping human rights at the heart of global governments. Human rights are not a matter of choice, they are our shared responsibility. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is distinguished representative of Germany, followed by Bulgaria. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I regret having to inform you that Mr. Lars Castellucci, the German federal government Commissioner for Human Rights Policy and Humanitarian Assistance, was unable to join us due to technical problems with a flight which was supposed to bring him from Berlin to Warsaw this morning. He has asked me to convey his sincere apologies and his best greetings. With your permission, Chair, I would read the statement he would have so much liked to deliver in person, in addition to the statements of the European Union and of Ambassador Peerman in the name of 10 European human rights ambassadors, to which we obviously subscribe. Chair, Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. First of all, I would like to join previous speakers, the EU and others, in thanking the Finnish Chair, ODIHR, and all who contributed to this conference for their dedication and hard work. Just as the Helsinki Final Act provided a common platform for civil society to mobilize and organize for human rights and fundamental freedoms, so does this conference, reminding us of the importance of the joint principles we agreed on 50 years ago. Because just as citizens used the accords to challenge their government's actions back then, we need them to be able to do so now. This conference is crucial for this purpose. Because if we lose the basis of our joint principles and commitments, we lose our joint security. It is deceptive to believe that as individuals and states, we do not depend on common rules such as human rights and fundamental freedoms. We are all dependent on common rules and principles. In the Helsinki Final Act, we pledged to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms. This has been an essential basis for peace and security in Europe, and crucially, it continues to be so. How governments treat their people is important for mutual security. Therefore, human rights need to remain a legitimate concern for all participating states. Because if might makes right, in the end, we all lose. Those who are strong may think they do not need human rights, but this is a fatal misconception, not least because those who are strong today might be weak and in need of protection themselves tomorrow. As German pastor Niemöller famously said, first, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Ladies and gentlemen, 50 years ago, the principles of the Helsinki Final Act gave citizens hope and courage to speak out and stand up for their rights. Today, given Russia's war of aggression and other grave challenges we face in our region, we need this kind of hope and courage, maybe more than ever. This is why we need to protect the legacy of the Helsinki Accords and keep working on protecting and reviving our joint commitments in the human dimension, here and everywhere else across the OSCE. We owe this to our organization and the more than 1 billion people across the OSCE area, especially the victims of grave violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. Germany will therefore continue to be a staunch supporter of the OSCE and its institutions and mechanisms. We strongly believe in the work in the human dimension, and we remain convinced that it is absolutely essential to our common security. In closing, thank you again. Thank you to the colleagues from the Finnish chair in office, to the staff of ODIHR, to the Polish authorities, and first and foremost to all the participants from civil society. Thank you.
I thank you. Next speaker on my list is Distinguished Representative of Bulgaria, followed by Ukraine. Sir, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Bulgaria aligns itself with the statement made by the European Union. Allow me to add a few remarks in my national capacity. Bulgaria would like to express gratitude to the Finnish chairpersonship in office and ODIHR for the excellent organization of this year's Warsaw Human Dimension Conference. We also thank Poland for the warm hospitality. We highly appreciate the opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue alongside the most vibrant members of civil society. It is commendable that the OSCE as an organization, its autonomous institutions, and field missions continue to function effectively despite the challenging political environment and budgetary constraints. It is important to ensure steadfast support to their work and the full implementation of their mandates in the area of human rights, including through support for strong human rights mandates for the OSCE field missions. Today, 50 years after the signing of the Helsinki Final Act, the protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms within the OSCE area is more crucial than ever for our collective security. We are deeply concerned about the ongoing blatant human rights violations and breaches of international humanitarian law committed by Russia in the course of its war of aggression against Ukraine, including the daily loss of civilian lives, widespread destruction, and damage across the country. These violations demand full accountability. Bulgaria strongly condemns Russia's unprovoked, unjustified, and unlawful military aggression against Ukraine. In accordance with its international obligations and OSCE commitments, Bulgaria continues to promote and protect human rights both at home and abroad. As Bulgaria continues to serve its second term as member of the UN Human Rights Council for the period 2024-2026, we are actively working towards fulfilling our national voluntary pledges. We are currently implementing a national strategy for equality, inclusion, and participation of Roma 2021-2030. Its long-term goal is to ensure effective equality and reduce disparities. In its national policies, Bulgaria continues to place strong emphasis on equality between women and men and the empowerment of women and girls. Honoring the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, we have issued a national review of the implementation of its implementation over the period 2019-2024. We continue to the successful implementation of our first ever National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security for the period 2020-2025. Contributing to combating anti-Semitism is a key element of our foreign and domestic policies in the field of human rights. Bearing in mind that it was the Bulgarian chairpersonship back in 2004 that initiated the overall tolerance and non-discrimination package of the OSCE, we believe we should make a more effective use of these instruments in the field of soft security. Bulgaria also strives to contribute to all endeavors aimed at countering disinformation as a hindering factor to freedom of speech. A concrete achievement this year was the publishing of a comprehensive guidebook on disinformation, which is a result of collaboration between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and civil society. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Ukraine, followed by Turkey. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellencies, Director Telalian, distinguished colleagues, Ukraine fully aligns with the EU statement, but let me share some thoughts in national capacity. On behalf of the delegation of Ukraine, I wish to express sincere gratitude to the Finnish chairpersonship and Poland for steering this conference with resolve and care, and to ODIHR for anchoring our deliberations in rigorous monitoring and practical support. We also thank many human rights directors, ambassadors, experts, and civil society representatives whose work gives the human dimension real meaning for people at risk. Over these days, a coherent factual picture has emerged from the ODIHR Ukraine Monitoring Initiative, the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine, the OSCE Moscow Mechanism, and independent organizations. It is a picture of methods of Russia, not accidents. Systematic strikes on civilians and essential infrastructure, the deportation and forced transfer of civilians, including children, the denial of POW status, torture and sham proceedings against Ukrainian prisoners, the dismantling of peaceful assembly and associations, the silencing of independent voices and pressure against religious communities in the temporarily occupied territories of my country. These practices are designed to erase accountability, identity, and consent. We also saw what democratic resilience look like under fire. Ukrainian civil society, our ombudsperson, and specialized prevention mechanisms, local authorities and communities of faith continue to document crimes, trace the disappeared, protect the displaced, and keep services running. Their work, together with ODIHR's monitoring and UN mechanisms, preserves the evidentiary truth and narrows the space for impunity. It is strategic resilience in action. Regrettably, we must place on record a matter that goes to integrity of our proceedings. Notwithstanding prior communication by the delegation of Ukraine, this Finnish chairpersonship's event was attended by representatives of the Russia-controlled so-called NGOs, whose public interventions condone the use of violence by endorsing Russia's ongoing war of aggression, the illegal occupation of parts of Ukraine, and attempts to alter their status, recycling narratives of so-called special military operation, denazification, and demilitarization of my country. This grossly violates the respective OSCE commitments, allowing state-controlled gongos that glorify aggression to use OSCE platforms undermines victims, distorts deliberations, and weakens our common commitments. Distinguished colleagues, our requests to the participating states and the OSCE institutions are specific and implementable. First, protect people and evidentiary truth. Sustain and strengthen the ODIHR Ukraine Monitoring Initiative, UN Human Rights Monitoring, and unhindered ICRC access to all detainees. Prioritize the protection, tracing, and return of Ukrainian children unlawfully deported to the Russian Federation. Ukraine warmly welcomes the appointment of Ms. Karina Odebrink as the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly Special Envoy for the return of Ukrainian children and counts on close cooperation under her mandate. Second, enforce the Helsinki document, paragraph 16. We call on the chairpersonship in office and ODIHR to apply robust vetting and deny accreditation to any organizations that justifies and trivializes violence. Such cases should be recorded transparently in the official documentation to safeguard the integrity of the OSCE fora. Third, hold a strict line on non-recognition. Refuse any judgment, legislation, guardianships, or adoptions engineered by occupation authorities. Reject pseudo-elections in the occupied territories and ensure accountability of those orchestrating these crimes. Fourth, support Ukraine's democratic resilience. Expand protection programs for human rights defenders and journalists, and deepen cooperation with Ukraine's ombudsperson and legitimate local authorities, including digital continuity for displaced institutions and civic structures. And fifth, confront Russia's new method of coercion. Russia now uses traffickers' tactics, sextortion, blackmail, and digital intimidation to coerce Ukrainians, especially youth, into criminal activity or collaboration. We urge OSCE participating states to treat such individuals as victims, disrupt the coercion networks, and hold Russian perpetrators accountable through coordinated law enforcement and cyber investigations. Dear participants, the value of the OSCE is measured where fear is highest and impunity deepest, where a family shelters in a darkened apartment after strike, where a prisoner faces a courtroom without rights, where a child is moved across a border without a parent. If the human dimension is to keep faith with those people, we must close the gap between evidence and remedy, enforce our standards, protect those at risk, and turn documentation into justice. Ukraine will continue to do its part. We count on this community led by the Finnish and incoming Swiss chairpersonships and supported by ODIHR to ensure that in our region law, not force, decides the future, that rights, not fear, shape daily life, and that those who glorify violence find no platform in the OSCE. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank you. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Turkey, followed by Norway. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, distinguished participants, we wish to express our appreciation to the Finnish chairpersonship and ODIHR for organizing this conference. We would also like to congratulate Poland on successful hosting in this significant year, marking the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act. The OSCE remains unique in its comprehensive approach to security, and the human dimension is an indispensable part of it. However, despite our collective commitments, immense human suffering and widespread destruction as a result of armed conflicts continue to exist in the OSCE area and beyond. The devastating and widespread impact of the war in Ukraine persists, with civilians, children in particular, paying a heavy toll. The war must stop. We firmly believe that the diplomatic track must gain momentum to ensure a fair and lasting peace. At the same time, we cannot turn a blind eye to the intolerable suffering of the Palestinian people and the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza. We hope that the recent Gaza ceasefire agreement will pave the way for a comprehensive, just and sustainable peace. Madam Chair, throughout this conference, our deliberations have underlined that human rights, democracy, and the rule of law are not abstract ideals, but essential foundations of collective security. But unfortunately, violations in these areas still persist. The discussions we had on tolerance and non-discrimination drew attention to the alarming increase in racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and intolerance against Christians and members of other religions. These trends threaten social cohesion and the shared values that bind our communities together. In this context, we would like to recall the necessity to adopt a declaration on the basis of the Basel Declaration of 2014. We also renew our call to organize designated human dimension events on discrimination, racism, and xenophobia, as foreseen in the 2002 Porto Ministerial Council Decision number 6. Madam Chair, we wish to reiterate the urgent need to strengthen international cooperation in combating human trafficking and protecting displaced persons. Special attention should be given to women and children, who are the most vulnerable in times of conflict and displacement. Another key element of our discussions has been the empowerment and protection of women and girls. Ensuring their participation in all aspects of social, political, and economic life is a prerequisite for sustainable protection of human rights. We also reaffirm the essential role of media freedom in strengthening democracy and transparency. Turkey will continue to cooperate with the RFM in this regard. Madam Chair, as the conference concludes, we must collectively ensure that our commitments are translated into tangible results. The effectiveness of the OSCE's human dimension depends on the strong engagement of participating states, the active involvement of civil society, and the continued functioning of our autonomous institutions. Unfortunately, during these 2 weeks, we have witnessed once again that some individuals and organizations continue to use this platform under the guise of NGOs to spread disinformation and propaganda. They hijack this platform and abuse the opportunities granted to them based on human rights and fundamental freedoms in order to make provocative calls. We hope that necessary precautions will be taken next year to prevent such malign attitude. We also wish to emphasize that while thematic conferences contribute meaningfully to our discussions, they cannot replace the Human Dimension Implementation Meeting. It remains the central platform for reviewing our commitments in comprehensive and inclusive manner. We hope that consensus can soon be reached to resume them as foreseen in our founding documents. In conclusion, Turkey reaffirms its full commitment to the OSCE's comprehensive concept of security and the advancement of peace, stability, and human dignity across our region. We would like to express our hope that this year's deliberations and the various recommendations that have ensued from them will contribute to the efforts of all participating states to ensure the full implementation of our shared human dimension commitments. Thank you.
I thank you. The next speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Norway, followed by Armenia. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Norway aligns itself with the statement made by the European Union, in addition to the statement made by Finland on behalf of a group of human rights ambassadors. However, allow me to make a few remarks in my national capacity. Norway extends its sincere appreciation to the Polish hosts, the chair in office, and ODIHR for organizing this year's Warsaw Human Dimension Conference. We also thank all participants, particularly the many civil society representatives whose contributions have made these 2 weeks both meaningful and impactful. This year's conference has once again demonstrated the importance of open dialogue between states and civil society. We are especially grateful to those who have taken personal risks to be here, sharing powerful testimonies and defending the principles that unite us. Your presence is a reminder that the human dimension of security is not abstract, it is lived, challenged, and protected every day. As we mark over 3.5 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the reports of ongoing violations of international humanitarian and human rights law remain deeply alarming. Norway reiterates that there must be no impunity. Accountability is essential, not only for justice, but for the credibility of our shared commitments. We are also encouraged by the strong participation of civil society throughout the conference and by the continued engagement of human rights defenders across the OSCE region. Their work is indispensable, particularly in the face of shrinking civic space, democratic backsliding, and increasing pressure on independent voices. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act, a milestone that reminds us of the enduring relevance of the OSCE's funding principles. As we look ahead to the Vienna Ministerial, Norway urges all participating states to recommit to these principles, strengthen our institutions, and ensure that the human dimension remains central to our collective security. Norway will continue to stand with civil society, support Ukraine, and defend human rights and democratic values across the OSCE region. Thank you.
I thank you. The next speaker on my list is Distinguished Representative of Armenia, followed by Serbia. Sir, you have the floor.
Madam Chair, distinguished delegates, at the outset, allow me to express our sincere appreciation to the OSCE Finnish chairpersonship and ODIHR for organizing this important conference, and the government and people of Poland for hosting the event. This Human Dimension Conference is happening amid the developments of great significance for our region. Establishment of peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan after the summit held in Washington, D.C. on August 8 and the agreements reached there. In this context, we believe that the OSCE platform should contribute to the further consolidation of peace. This conference remains one of the most important and unique platforms within the OSCE framework, a place where governments and civil society can engage openly on the principles that define our collective security: respect for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. These are not abstract ideals, they are the foundation of sustainable peace and trust among participating states. Unfortunately, we continue to witness deeply troubling tendency of democracies becoming targets of hybrid attacks through disinformation, cyber interference, and the deliberate erosion of public trust in institutions. In this context, we wish to emphasize the importance of international cooperation in strengthening the resilience of our democracies against hybrid threats. We also continue to witness trends across the OSCE area, the shrinking of civic space, attacks on independent media, and persecution of human rights defenders. We are also gravely concerned by the ongoing violations of international law and international humanitarian law that this organization, among others, was built to uphold, but unfortunately is unable to deliver. These actions erode the credibility of our commitments and inflict lasting damage on the human dimension. Armenia remains steadfast in strengthening democratic institutions, promoting transparency, and ensuring full respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. The vibrant Armenian civil society is a cornerstone of the democratic progress, a partner, not an adversary, in building a more open, just, and accountable society. Dear colleagues, we also wish to stress the crucial role of this conference in giving space to independent non-governmental organizations, voices that enrich our discussions and hold us to our shared values. Yet we cannot ignore the growing participation of entities, gongos as we call them here, that masquerade as civil society while spreading outdated and falsified state-orchestrated propaganda narratives and pursuing hidden political agendas. I will not enlist them, as we all know them all too well. Their presence not only distracts from genuine dialogue and consumes precious time, but also undermines the integrity and credibility of this forum and the very principles of human rights it seeks to promote. They are active players of the above-mentioned hybrid warfare which is currently underway. We believe that the chairpersonship possesses both the sufficient evidence and the authority to take the appropriate measures to prevent such abuses of the process, ensuring that this forum remains a space for authentic civil voices, not instruments of disinformation and manipulation. This is an essential prerequisite for preserving the value and purpose of this forum. Madam Chair, the Republic of Armenia remains deeply committed to the OSCE's human dimension and to the vision of a lasting peace and comprehensive security, grounded in respect for human rights, dignity, and justice. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is distinguished representative of Serbia, followed by Azerbaijan. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As many speakers before us, Serbia would like to extend its sincere gratitude to ODIHR, the chairmanship of Finland, for organizing the event, as well as the government of Poland for hosting it. This gathering has once again reminded us of the importance of dialogue for the promotion and protection of human rights. For the past 2 weeks, we have listened carefully about good practices as well as concerns. It is now time for us to take these important messages back to our respective capitals and reflect on them. Madam Chairperson, the conference once again raised awareness of numerous challenges ahead of us. Serbia is devoted to building trust among all segments of its population, firmly believing that diversity should be perceived as an asset rather than a cause for division. As a multicultural and multi-ethnic country, Serbia recognizes the significance of creating an inclusive atmosphere where every community is valued and safeguarded. Madam Chairperson, this year we mark an important anniversary, 50 years since the adoption of the Helsinki Final Act. Its core principles are today more important than ever. Last year, at this very place, Serbia expressed its grave concern about the dire human rights situation facing the Serbs in Kosovo and Metohija. Particular attention was given to alarming instances of ethnically motivated violence and repression through systematic discrimination, restrictions on freedom of movement, property seizures, denial of enjoyment or access to essential services, including healthcare and education. This continues to be a daily basis reality for the Serbs in the province. It is unfortunate that despite numerous concerns and calls for respect for human rights, the situation has only worsened in the past year. Since 2023, additional 20% of Serbs left the province, further to over 200,000 Serbs fleeing the province since 1999. The situation demands action. Compassion alone is just not enough. Serbia calls on the international community to increase efforts to ensure safety, dignity, and rights of all people living in Kosovo and Metohija, particularly the increasingly targeted Serbian population. The role of the OSCE, especially timely and adequate reporting by OMIC, are increasingly important. Madam Chairperson, as we close the final chapter of this conference, Let us remember that together we can overcome the challenges ahead and foster a future based on justice, peace, and respect for all. Serbia remains committed to fulfilling these goals. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on my list is distinguished representative of Azerbaijan, followed by Poland. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We also thank the Finnish chairmanship for convening this conference. The Republic of Azerbaijan attaches great importance to protection and promotion of human rights. This conference is intended to serve as a platform for meaningful dialogue and mutual understanding. We therefore regret the attempts by certain Armenia-based or pro-Armenian so-called NGOs, along with some other NGOs, to turn such an event into a vehicle for unfounded allegations against Azerbaijan, which we consider unacceptable. Such allegations are inconsistent with the spirit of OSCE values and principles, as well as a normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and we firmly reject them. This conference should not be distorted into space of political propaganda or smear campaign, but should remain dedicated to open dialogue and exchange among participants. Such behavior displayed by certain participants undermined the quality and overall efficiency of all deliberations. Thank you very much.
I thank you. The next and final speaker on my list is the distinguished representative of Poland. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Poland fully aligns itself with the statement delivered by the European Union. I would like, however, to add a couple of remarks in my national capacity. As we near the conclusion of the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to the Finnish chairpersonship for bringing together a record number of almost 1,900 registered participants from across the OSCE region. We are also deeply grateful to ODIHR for organizing such a well-run and enriching event. Regretfully, once again this year, it was not possible to reach consensus on holding the annual mandated Human Dimension implementation meeting. We are pleased, however, that the Warsaw Human Dimension Conference managed to partially but successfully fill that gap. Over the past 2 weeks, both in the plenary sessions and in a record number of almost 120 side events, we have had a valuable opportunity to engage with civil society and to hear directly from human rights defenders, many of whom took grave personal risks to share with us their perspectives. We salute your courage and determination. Human rights and fundamental freedoms are under serious threats in many parts of the OSCE region. This is why it is all the more important to continue the dialogue on the implementation of the OSCE Human Dimension commitments. It is only through collective efforts that we can take effective action to improve the human rights situation in the OSCE area. Poland remains a steadfast supporter of the OSCE, its autonomous institutions and their independent mandates. The OSCE's concept of comprehensive security must remain at the organization's core. In closing, let me emphasize that we are looking forward to hosting you here in beautiful Warsaw at all future iterations of this important event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for Poland for your generosity as the host country. With this, I have come to the end of my list of speakers. Does any other delegation wish to take the floor on this session? That does not seem to be the case. So with this, we have come to the end of this closing session, but also to the end of this Warsaw Human Dimension Conference 2025. I thank you all for your active participation, and ODIHR for the support, and interpreters, you have been doing an important job throughout these 2 weeks, and everybody who have been part of making this event so important and successful, including our dear civil society participants. I wish you all safe travels back home. Thank you.
Thank you.